Hi all. How are things? Whether all have joined in? Good morning, Sai Vijay. Good morning, Uday. Good morning, Kalyan, Manideep. Any questions, students, before getting started? Today's topic would be trigger. Have you practiced the procedure queries that I have assigned? Any doubt you were able to do it? Okay, let's get started then. 3 minutes passed. Kalyan, Mani. I don't see much of students joined yet. Ramya, is it a good time to start? Or anybody give me a nod? Shall we get started? Okay, fine. Let's wait for a minute and then get started. Okay, today's topic content would be, where is my topic? I have already uploaded the today's content and the script within the Slack. Please download and have it handy in case you are not able to read or you are not able to see example stack. All the session content for today is already uploaded. So download them. You can open on your local machine as well. I did not do one thing is the interview question. Okay, fine. Let's get started. Today's topic and agenda is uh, it is also one of the important area where it is not used. This particular object that we are going to study today is trigger. Trigger is not that used heavily across the ecosystem of SQL, but it is an important concept that you must know so that in case you need it, you have to implement the concept using trigger. Okay. Do remember trigger is the data in trigger is the database object that gets automatically. We have studied about the procedure, right? Procedure and function. Function is a script block. If upon invocation, it always returns a value, right? That is what we studied about a function. We studied about a procedure is it is a script block. It can do anything and everything possible within the SQL. DDL, DML, DQL, TCL, whatever command stack is available, we can do all those things within the procedure. It may or may not return value. It accepts input parameter and output parameter. Function doesn't have output parameter. Do you remember a similar kind of concept like procedure and function available known as triggers? Trigger is also a kind of script block only, but user cannot call it. Like the function can be called using a select function, select query, select the dbo.function name, or select star from function name if it's the table valued function. Or we can call the procedure by saying execute procedure name and the parameter list. There is a script block and the concept or a object available in SQL Server that gets automatically triggered whenever you do DML or DDL event. That means what? You can associate a trigger to a DML or DDL event. Okay, you think about this, it is a listener. That means it is going to listen to any objective happening on a particular table, okay, or inside the database. Let's understand only about the tables. Say for an example, somebody is trying to insert a row into the table. What would you want to do? Whenever someone insert a row, what is that new data coming into the table? You want to record it somewhere else. The data will definitely go into the table, but you want to record it somewhere else also. If somebody is updating a table value from X to Y, once you write the update, previous data is going to be updated. You will never be able to find the previous data, right? But you want to implement a mechanism whenever somebody try to update the data in the actual table, I want to keep the backup of the previous data in some other table and then update the new value. Or in case somebody want to delete a record from the table, you want to take a backup of that particular data from the actual table and then delete the record, right? If your intention is that, there are two mechanisms. Either you control your insert, update, delete through a procedure so that you can do all this activity from the procedure, saying you cannot touch the table insert or update or delete directly from within the procedure. Whenever somebody say a delete query on the table, instead of writing the delete on the table first, you will take that particular data row into a temp table. From the temp table, you insert into an audit table, store it in different table, and then you delete the record from the delete table. Instead of doing that, SQL Server has given you the flexibility of giving a event listening functionality known as trigger. Uh, as per the Microsoft definition, trigger is a special stored procedure that automatically runs when an event occurs in the database server. Depending upon what event it listen to, there can be two types of trigger. One is the DML trigger, one is the DDL trigger. Okay, if the server is listening to the DML event, insert, update, delete on the table, then it is known as a DML trigger. If the server is listening to DDL event like create, alter, drop, rename, truncate, then it is a DDL trigger. Okay, we'll see about how exactly the things work. How can you actually implement a trigger, and let's go ahead and see the things out. Okay, typical signature of a create trigger is, we know any component we want to create inside a SQL Server, the signature is create database object type object name. So here we want to create a trigger, so we'll say create trigger trigger name. Then I said that the trigger listen to events, so you have to associate an event on a very specific object. When a DML event happening on employee table, on, you have to say I'm creating the trigger on this employee table, so that anything happen on the employee table, I will be able to track it down. Okay, I want to create an DDL event on the database study. So anytime any create table or a drop table or a truncate table or a create login or any kind of create event or alter event happen, I can track it down, right? I can keep it in a audit log. If you want to implement, typically why the triggers are needed, let us understand why does this what is the use of this particular object trigger. Trigger are typically needed for implementing audit log functionality in a server. Audit log, who entered, who did it, who inserted, what was the previous value, who changed it. If you want to implement an audit log functionality on your SQL Server, on those cases, implementing a trigger is going to help solve the problem. Okay, the main characteristics of the trigger are characteristic that make trigger different than the stored procedure are, okay, what is the difference between a stored procedure and a trigger? Stored procedure, you can call explicitly by writing execute trigger name and the parameter. Sorry, you can call a stored procedure by saying execute procedure name and the parameter, but you cannot call a trigger explicitly. Triggers cannot be manually called by any user. There is no way for triggers to receive parameter. Procedure may or may not need parameters, but trigger you absolutely cannot pass parameter. Okay, you cannot commit a rollback transaction inside trigger. You cannot write a begin run or a rollback kind of statement within a trigger. You can do that within a procedure. Within a procedure also, you can write a begin transaction and roll back. In that way, you can roll back whatever you did, but inside a trigger, it is not, absolutely not possible. These are the three important features. It is an important interview question, student. Do remember what is the difference between a stored procedure and trigger. If you, it is a 7 on 10 type of question. In 7, 10 out of 10 interviews, in 7 interviews, find this question. What is the trigger, types of trigger, and what is the difference between trigger and a procedure? Okay. Now let's go to the types of the trigger. So ideally, there are high level though two types of trigger: DDL trigger or DML trigger. If the trigger is happening because of a DDL event, DDL means create, alter, drop, rename, truncate. If it is happening, then it is the DDL trigger. If the event is happening because of an insert, update, delete command, then it is the DML trigger. We'll understand what is the for and instead of trigger. For and instead of is the subset of the DML trigger. So DML trigger are also of two type. One is the for trigger, one is the instead of trigger. Okay. To start the concept, let's start with the concept called as preparation, data preparation. So for the data preparation, I'm creating a new table called as employees. Last time we created a table called employee. We're creating a table called employees, employee ID, employee name, employee address, and monthly salary. This table we are versed with. Last time it was employee and emp ID was the column name. Now it is employee ID. And then I'm creating an audit history table known as create table employees audit. Audit means what? Whatever happening on the employee table, you track a record of it. Who inserted the record, when did it got inserted, when did it got modified, and all those things. I wanted to keep a track of those records. Okay. Now initially we'll insert a few rows of data set into the table. I'm keeping track of a few of the Indian cricketer. So let's go back to the script. If you see, I will actually drop the table because I have already created the drop table employee. And drop table employees audit. Perfect. So let us do this. Create table employees. Let's first create a table called an employee table with all this four. Did I not drop the table? I said I dropped the table. Yeah, I could create the table. Now I could create the employees audit table. I wanted to show you, I implemented a DDL trigger. We will jump into the DDL trigger just to show you what is happening now. Anytime I'm creating because I have created a DDL trigger on my database, I could see every time I'm firing a DDL command. Okay. Anytime I'm doing the DDL, it is going to capture who is doing it, what time it is doing it, what table getting created. If I click on any of these objects, you will be able to see the structure. Somebody is creating a create table employees audit. This is a signature somebody fired. What time? It is a create table command. At this point in time, this particular laptop, this particular user is trying to create a table called as employee audit, right? You can actually keep a track of all these things because I have implemented already a DDL trigger for your demonstration. It is actually automatically getting triggered at every event I'm doing. Okay, I can do that. What I will say, drop trigger this so that at least it is not needed though. We'll go ahead and do that later. Okay, let's create a basic trigger. What did I say? Trigger get associated whenever a DDL or DML event happens. So we'll first understand what is a DML trigger because you will implement a DML trigger more of than a DDL trigger ever. DDL trigger will be written by database administrators. DML trigger will be written by programmers. Okay, if you are a software developer, you are going to write your DML trigger because you will be concerned about what happens to the table. You don't bother what happens to the database. It is a responsibility of a database administrator to write a DDL trigger. But I will show you both of the cases today. So in that way, you understand the concept well. So we created two tables and let us insert a few rows of data into the table. Let's see whether we have any data available in these two tables. Execute. No data available in the table. I have created two tables called as employees and one is known as employees audit. Refresh. I'm creating one table called as employees and employee audit. These are the two tables we have created. Okay. Now what we'll do, there is no data row available. So the first thing I want to do is I want to insert a few rows of the data into the table first. Okay. So let's insert a few record set into the table. Yeah, I inserted 4 rows. Now I want to show you data, what is available in employee and employee audit. See, 4 rows of data in the employee table. There is no record set available in the employee audit table, right? Somebody inserted 4 rows of the data, but it is not tracked who did it, right? My ambition is whenever somebody does any kind of DML operation on the on the employee table, I want to keep a track of that particular thing. Who entered the room? At what time somebody entered the room? What happened inside the room, right? If you want to implement a conditional logic, or you want to keep track of things, in those cases, you should use the trigger concept. Triggers are of two types, DML trigger and DDL trigger. DML trigger occurs whenever you do a DML event. What is the DML event? DMLs are only 4 commands: insert, update, delete, merge. Whenever these 4 commands run, a DML trigger gets executed. Whenever DDL event happen, a create, alter, drop, rename, truncate, right? Whenever a DDL event happen, you want to trigger something, then it is known as a DDL trigger. First thing first, let's create the first basic trigger structure. Okay. How do I create a trigger? Always create statement helps in doing it. We have seen this particular pattern, create or alter. Create or alter means what? If it is not there, you create. If it is there, you alter it. That is why I'm saying create or alter trigger name on a specific table name. That is the first basic syntax you have to remember. What I'm saying, create trigger name, create trigger name on a specific table name. You are creating a trigger for the specific table. For what event? You will say for what event? For insert event or for update event, you will say what event you are creating it. So we'll say the form one will create a trigger for the insert event. So what I will say, create trigger name, create trigger name. I'm saying trigger tr or trg are the nomenclature that you can use. Trigger for trg or tr. Trigger on which table you are trying to do that. I am trying to insert record into the audit employees. And what type of trigger? It is an insert event. Okay. tr audit employees insert event on table employees for insert command. Okay. Do you remember I said this in past also in one of the session? There are two magic table available within SQL Server. These are known as magic tables. Okay. What are those two tables? Intrinsic table. These objects are only available during the merge operation. We have seen this during the merge operation, and I said that we will be discussing about in detail during the trigger exercises. Inside the trigger, there are two default tables available known as inserted and deleted table. You don't need to create it. It is by default available within the inserted and deleted table. What happens? Whenever a new record is getting inserted, that data will be available within the inserted table. Let me first show the content of the magic table if it is there. Yeah, if it is magic table. Okay. When the DML event happen, whenever the insert command get executed, what will happen? Inserted table will hold the data. Rows will be inserted in the inserted table. There will be no record inside the deleted table. By default, when an insert event happen, fresh rows will go to the inserted table. There will be no row available in the deleted table. Whenever you do delete command, no row will be available in the inserted table. There will be rows available in the deleted table. Deleted means whatever row data will be deleted, that will be available in the deleted table. In the case of update, the changed value, you are going to say update table name, set column name equals to value. There will be previous value. Say for an example, employee's previous value is 10,000, salary is 10,000, and you are updating to 45,000. So the previous data will go to the deleted table. The new data will go to the inserted table. Again, I'm saying, if you are doing an insert, the data will only be available. The new values will be available in the inserted magic table. If you are deleting a row of data, then it will be available in the deleted magic table. If you are doing an update, the previous value that will be updated with the new value will be available in the deleted table, because that value will be deleted and it will be replaced with a new value. New value will always go to the inserted. I will take a pause just to get a confirmation on the inserted and deleted magic table concept. Is it clear? What does the inserted and deleted table does? Inserted and deleted are two magic tables by default available to hold data of what happens within the trigger. Uday says clear. Any other person having doubt? Kalyan says clear. Okay, now let's go back and see how we are going to leverage this particular thing. Okay, what I'm doing, I'm saying create a trigger on employee table, create a trigger on the employee table for the insert event. Okay, whenever somebody does an insert, you start triggering it as begin, as begin end. We have seen this particular pattern. Create procedure, procedure name as begin end. Create function, function name as begin end. Create trigger, trigger name as begin end. We are defining a scope of the code, right? So I'm saying as begin, then I'm saying whatever data goes into the inserted table, you show me. Whatever data goes into the deleted table, you show me. Print the trigger, this particular trigger automatically triggered. I'm just printing one line of statement. Then I'm saying if exist, select star from inserted. When the data will be there in the inserted table, if there is really a insert command getting executed, then the inserted table will definitely have data. So I'm saying if exist, select star from inserted. That means if it is an insert command, then begin and end. What do you do? Insert into employees audit table. You definitely insert data into the employee table. I'm not saying that you don't do it. You will definitely insert into employee, but also you insert whatever data getting inserted into employee table. When somebody is trying to insert data into employee, what you are doing, whenever somebody insert data into employee, you also insert data into employees audit table. What data? Whatever new data is coming into the inserted table. What I'm saying, select star from inserted table. What do you select? Inserted employee ID, inserted employee name, inserted employee address, inserted monthly salary. Value of this will be value of who did it, who did the insert. I'm setting insert as blank. I'm saying at what time it is getting inserted, get date, what operation, it is an insert operation. I'm saying that. I'm saying simply insert into employee audit. Select all the data from the inserted table because I think it is an inserted insert operation. Why? Because I see value in the inserted table. That is what the concept is. If some insert command is executed, inserted table will have new rows of data. Correct? That is where I'm checking. If there is inserted rows inside the inserted table, you go perform this audit operation. Clear? Begin, as begin, end. As begin and I'm showing you the scope. As begin and end, here scope ends, and here the if exists scope ends. What I'm saying, verify if inserted table has data, then you insert into the employee order. Straightforward. Let us create this trigger. Form 1, execute. Trigger command executed successfully. That essentially means the trigger is created. Interesting point to remember. Trigger is created. Where do I see the trigger? Is it under the programmability like the procedure and function? Absolutely not. Do remember, though the trigger is a procedure like script or function like script, it is not available under programmability. Where it is available, trigger is associated to a table or a view. Okay, do remember, trigger is associated to a DML trigger is associated to a table or a view, because table contains data, view also contains data, though view is a virtual container, but you can associate a trigger to a view as well. Okay, if it is a simple trigger, then you can definitely associate a trigger to a view as well. Okay, now let us see what we are trying to do. We are trying to associate the trigger called as TR audit employees insert on employees table. That means my trigger is associated to the employees table. I will go expand the plus sign on the employees table. I will go to a node known as trigger. Can you see that? Within the employees table, if you expand this plus icon, then you see something called as triggers here, right? If you go expand this, you will see this TR audit employee insert associated to here. Can you see the same name that we have associated here? TR audit employees insert. TR audit employees insert. I want to know what this particular trigger is. Right click on it, modify. Whatever code we have issued is a part of the trigger now. Can you see that? That means essentially one other difference between the trigger and the procedure is procedures functions are available under the programmability node. Trigger is associated under the triggers object within the table signature, because if it is a DML trigger, it will be available under the table signature itself. If it is associated to employees table, it will be available in employees. If it is associated to customer, it will be available under customer. Where the trigger is going to listen to, what event it is going to listen to. So I am saying you listen event of insert command on the employees table. That is where the trigger I have created. So because I have created a trigger for the insert command, for the insert command or not, right? I'm saying I'm doing an insert command. So what my expectation is, whenever I will try to insert a record into which table, employees table, I am hoping a component called as trigger will be automatically executed, because that is what the behavior of trigger is. Trigger gets automatically executed whenever you fire an DML command. And if there is a DML trigger associated is available. If there is a trigger, definitely it will listen to. So I know on employees table, I have created an insert trigger, right? Let us understand, if I insert a fresh row of data, what happens? Can you see when I am doing an insert, I am seeing a new pattern of data. One select data, another select data coming out. Why? Because I have, whenever I'm trying to do a insert query on the employees table, I have associated a trigger called as trg audit employee on the insert table for insert command, listening to the insert command, and it is available on the employees table. So what happened, whenever I'm doing an insert command, the trigger is automatically getting invoked, and the part of the trigger is select star from inserted. If you see, I have inserted a new row of data that is by default available in a magic table called as inserted table. I said if it is an insert operation, then deleted table will have no rows of data. This is the outcome of the second output is the deleted table data. It is an insert operation. There is no rows available in the deleted data set. Clear? If I go to the messages, I will say trigger insert automatically triggered. I did a insert command on the employee table. Do you remember? What did I do? I inserted a record in the table, but the trigger gets called. Can you see that? Trigger get automatically triggered. And then it also hiddenly does another thing for me. What thing that it did for me? I will try to see the data in the employees and employees audit. Till the first 4 rows, there was no trigger. So I never had the privilege of verifying who inserted the first 4 rows, right? But I have inserted, I have created a new trigger that listens to the insert event. So whenever somebody does an insert on the table, it will always be tracked. The data will go into the employee table, but also audit log will go into the employees audit table. What happened? I'm saying employee ID, this name, this monthly salary, and at this point in time, this data got inserted into the table, right? On a very given day, I want to know how many rows got inserted into my table per day basis, right? I can actually identify a logic to say, tell me how many rows of data got inserted into the employee table through this particular table. This is the audit table. I can come to the audit table and see how many rows of data get inserted into the table on a very specific date range between start date and end date, and then I can figure it out. I want to know who modified it, who inserted this data. I have not inserted right now, but I will show you how to insert it. Okay, I can figure out who did the change. In that case also, you will be able to identify that. So you think about trigger gives you the flexibility of doing the data audit of the event. At times also you can write your complex logic within a trigger, because by default whenever you do DML operation or DDL operation, trigger anyways gets executed. So any logical computation that you want to get associated to, you can do it. Okay, now till this point, is it clear, students? Students, is it clear? Any question by far? Anybody has any question? Raise your hand so that I know that it is clear or not. Hello, is it clear to all? Can I get a response? Clear, sir. Kalyan. Okay, thank you, Kalyan, for confirming. Now we'll see another behavior. Okay, what we'll see? We have seen the insert trigger. Now we'll see another trigger, another DML trigger on the update event. Okay, I will create another trigger, form 2. I'm creating another trigger. Same logic I'm doing. Printing the trigger, this new trigger, TRG employee update on the same employees table for the update event. Initially, I was saying for the insert event. Is that correct? For insert, I was doing. Now I am doing the form 2 where I'm doing it for the for update event. Okay. So for update event, what I'm saying, if exists, select star from deleted. I know there is a possibility it may also get triggered for the deleted situation, but I know whenever deleted has a row, essentially it will be either a delete operation or an update operation. But I am 100% sure that this particular trigger will only get executed whenever an update statement happens. So I am saying if exists data in the deleted table, that means it is an operation. If update operation has caused a trigger and there is rows available in the deleted table, that means actually delete update operation is changing data set. Then you insert the data in the employee audit and insert whatever data is available in the deleted table. Okay, let's create the magic table based trigger. Second form, execute. I created a new trigger. Go to the employees table, go to the triggers, do refresh, see whether there are two triggers now. Yes, two trigger, one for insert, one for update. We can see both the triggers available. Okay. Now, I know if I do a insert now, whether my update trigger will get executed or not. I want to know. Can somebody answer? If I do the insert command, whether the update trigger will get executed or not, or only insert trigger will get executed. Waiting for an answer. I'm waiting for the answer in the question segment. If you can just write an answer, whatever you think. Where I have two trigger available. One is the insert trigger, one is update. I'm going to insert one more row of data into the table. Will it call the update trigger? Question is that. Answer is no. Do remember, every kind of trigger, though I have a DML trigger on insert command and update command, depending upon what command you are executing, it will trigger the event. So if you are doing insert command, then it will call insert trigger. If you only do update command, then only it will call the update trigger. Let us do insert one more time. Inserted magic table has more rows of data. Deleted has no rows of data. Okay. And which trigger get called? TRG employee insert got invoked. Even if it is a DML trigger, I have two types of trigger available on the table, insert and update. What operation is being done on the employee table? It is the insert command being fired. Why it will invoke the update trigger? Absolutely not. It will insert the insert trigger only. Clear? You have insert trigger and update trigger listening on different event stack. Only the event corresponding to a particular functionality will be triggered. If you are doing insert, then insert trigger will be fired. If you are doing update, that only update trigger will be fired. Okay. Now we'll do one. We have created an update trigger. So just a second, please. So yeah, whenever you do an update operation, then you see update event getting fired. Let's see. If I do the update on the employee now, I am trying to update the salary of Harbhajan Singh from X to 20,000. Okay. So let's do this update operation one more time. Do remember, I have done Harbhajan Singh record insert 2 times. That is where I'm seeing 2 record available in the employee table. Employee ID 5 is Harbhajan Singh, employee ID 6 is also Harbhajan Singh. Okay. 2 record in the employee table had the data. Do remember, it is the data coming from inserted. This is the data coming from deleted. What did I say? Deleted will have old data. Inserted will have new data. So what you are trying to do, you are trying to insert the previous value of the data with 20,000. So previous data was 25,000. You are trying to, we tried inserting the Harbhajan Singh with 25,000 salary. His salary got degraded. So now we want to update with 20,000. What it did, inserted had data, updated, deleted has data. So now you will see which trigger got called automatically. Trigger TRG employees update side of the trigger got invoked automatically, not the inserted, right? Because it is an update event, corresponding update trigger got automatically executed. When it got executed, that means some data must have gone into the audit table. Let's see the audit table data. First thing we could see, there are 2 rows in the employees table. That is where that 2 rows came, correct? And previous data for the Harbhajan Singh was 25,000. Now I wanted to see what happened with previous salary of Harbhajan Singh. I could see these last 2 rows, Harbhajan Singh somebody tried updating the employee ID 5 and 6 record, whose name was Harbhajan Singh. They updated the previous salary from 25,000 to 20,000. Can I track it? What happened? Previous value was 25,000 and the new value is 20,000. I can always see what was the previous value, right? Even if somebody had updated, I can still, somebody mistakenly did it, but there is a trigger. It can help you prevent the data loss. Why? Because there is an important table and somebody mistakenly updated the salary. We can always go back to the audit table to figure out what was the previous value. Correct? That is what the purpose of a trigger is. Trigger helps you keeping track of an audit log. Similarly, we can associate our trigger to the delete event also, right? Create a trigger for the on the employee for the delete event. Trigger, this particular trigger will automatically get called whenever I'm going to do the delete thing. Okay. Execute. I have a trigger now for the delete event. So whenever I will do a delete operation, automatically the trigger will get called. I'm doing a delete operation on the employees table. I know 2 rows will be deleted. Let's see what happens. Okay, employee inserted table doesn't have any data here. Past table, do remember I'm doing delete operation. There is no insert operation happening. So deleted table doesn't have any data. 2 rows that matched employee record to be deleted, those are available in the deleted table. That employee ID 5 and 6, whose name is Harbhajan Singh, are going to be deleted. Okay, it will delete the data from employee table, but also it will insert those deleted value in the employee audit table. Okay, we can see trigger TRG audit employees delete automatically trigger. Okay, now do remember, up to this point, is it clear that whatever operation you do, corresponding operation related trigger will come up? Okay, you can see that these 2 records got deleted at this point in time, right? We could see these records got inserted at this time, these records get updated at this time, these records got deleted in this time, right? I could keep a track on my actual table. Actual table has 4 rows, but whenever insert, update, delete are happening, I could see what is somebody is trying to do on it. Okay, now I will show you another advanced form of this particular trigger here, where all the logic can listen to the same trigger. I have 3 trigger available on my database, right? Insert, for delete, for update. Independently, I have 3 trigger. I can have one trigger listening to all the event also. That is also a possibility. I can create only one trigger where it can listen to insert, update, delete all together, all the 3 of them. In case it is listening to that, I will say TRG audit employees for insert, comma update, comma delete. That means this trigger will anyways get executed if a insert happen or update happen or a delete happen, right? If the same trigger listening to all, then I need to identify which operation is this. Is it an insert operation? Is it an update operation, or is it a delete operation, right? How do I do that? First thing I'm doing, printing a message, which trigger getting invoked. I want to identify that who is the login who is trying to do this operation. Do remember there is a system view known as sys underscore dm underscore execution session, where it can identify session SPID. This @SPID is nothing but this query window ID 71. If you see this query window ID 71, the SPID gives a server variable that gives you the parameter to the dm underscore execute session, saying who is trying to execute the query ID 71, get the login name of that user. Okay, this particular query will fetch you the login name, who is the login user who is trying to do this operation. Okay, after doing that, what we'll do, we'll try to identify this is the only trigger who is going to listen to all the event, insert, update, delete, all the 3 of them, right? How do I do make sure that is it an insert or update or delete, and depending upon that I will insert my audit data. How do I do? I will say declare operation. I will say declare @I and declare @D. Okay, and I would say set the value of I from the count of record available in the inserted table. Set the value of D from the count of record available in the deleted table, and I can apply my logic. I know if I value is greater than D value, that means inserted has rows, deleted doesn't have rows, it is an insert operation. Is that correct? I'm writing this particular condition here. If @I is greater than @D and @I is greater than 0, that means at least insert has happened. I is greater than D and I is greater than 0. If you are trying to do that, that is the insert operation, and I am doing this. The same insert command I'm writing, insert from the inserted. Here I computed who is the login. In earlier we was to hard code the login as blank. I wrote this particular logic to figure out who is the login who is trying to do it. So I'm saying this login name computed value, and I'm saying hard coding value, it is an insert operation. Okay. Second condition I'm computing. Else if I is greater than 0 and D is greater than 0, what would be the case where inserted table and deleted table will have, both the table will have data, update operation. So I will say it is an update operation. What would be the situation if it is not an insert and if it is not update? Then else it will be a delete operation, right? So I wrote if it is not insert, it is not update, then definitely it is a delete operation. Done. So I will create a trigger on the table, and I would say that you execute this trigger. Do remember, now I do have 4 triggers available on my table employees. Can you see? One is insert, one is update, one is delete, and there is audit employee also, a new trigger that listens to all insert, update, delete at the same time. Do remember, if you have already an insert trigger available and you have another insert trigger available, both the trigger will fire. This is dedicated insert, and there is another trigger that also listens to the insert event, right? So this trigger will also fire, this trigger will also fire. There is an update trigger, and this trigger also gets executed for the update event. So this will fire, this will fire, right? So always remember, whenever you have a trigger available, make sure only one trigger listens to the event, or else you will get confused who is doing what. Okay. For the example sake, I have created 2 trigger listening to this, but let us go for a in understand what happens. Okay, I'm trying to update the employee name of employee ID, whose employee ID is 1. Okay, I'm trying to update that. Do remember, data coming from this trigger as this is the inserted record. What was the previous value? What is the new value? Inserted is saying the new value. New value is Z. This is the data coming from the deleted table. Previous value was Rahul Dravid. Okay, and I'm showing what is the value of the inserted and deleted. Inserted count 1 record, deleted count 1 record, because I wrote this particular trigger where I'm showing, show me what is the inserted and deleted value. Can you see that? Select @I as inserted, select @D as deleted. Okay, but do remember, I did not write show me the data from the inserted and deleted table. This is coming from another object. Okay, let us see what happened. Whenever I did the update, do remember the dedicated trigger got executed first. Can you see that? There is a dedicated trigger called as tr audit employee update trigger that listens to the update event. That got triggered first. Okay, once that particular trigger got executed, secondary trigger tr audit employee got triggered, because it also listens to the update event. So both of the trigger got executed. Clear? Now if I go to the audit log, I can see I tried changing my value from Rahul Dravid to X, right? So the value got changed to ZZZ. The Rahul Dravid record got inserted here 2 times. Ideally, I modified 1 record, but it got added 2 times. The reason being, one trigger, update trigger got executed that inserted the record, and this particular trigger also got executed that inserted and record. Do you remember? My default trigger didn't have the logic to identify the modified by. It was always inserting a blank value. You can see this record. When it tried inserting, it inserted a blank record for the modified by. Whereas my new trigger, the new audit employees trigger, has a logic to identify who is modifying it. So it identify a login name who is trying to modify my trigger data, right? So that is where I am doing one operation, but it is inserting 2 record into the audit table, one from the default trigger, other from the generic trigger that listens to insert, update, delete command. Clear? Clear up to this point, students? Any questions, students? Trigger is a database object that gets triggered automatically on a DML event. Okay. Now there is another trigger known as instead of trigger. Do you remember? Instead of trigger is a trigger that gets associated predominantly for a view. Okay. If in case you want to associate or trigger on a view and you want to say somebody is trying to do an insert operation on a view, instead of inserting the data on a view, you do something else. You want to do that. What you are trying to say? Instead of doing that, you do this. You typically in English you say that, right? That is where the coin is of what do you say? The instead of trigger was in pipeline. What happened? Let us say we create a view. We will create a view that selects the employee name and employee address from employee table. Okay, this is the query. Once you execute, it will show you the employee name and employee address. I can create a view. I can create a view on a select query. So I will say create view, view name. So already the view exists. So I have already created this particular view. Okay. Now I can create or alter the trigger on a view saying instead of. Till now we are doing a for, but now we are doing a instead of trigger. Instead of trigger typically gets associated to a view, but you can associate to a table as well, but the purpose of introducing the instead of was for a view. What I'm trying to say, create a trigger on the view VW employee instead of the insert operation. Instead of insert operation, if somebody trying to insert on the employee view, instead of inserting that, you do something else. Okay, what I will do, create a trigger on the view and instead of for the insert operation, what do you do? Set no count on, print this particular trigger called insert into the employee table, whatever data comes into the inserted table, inserted magic table. I'm trying to do that. Whenever somebody try to insert a row into the view, instead of inserting the row into the view, you insert into the actual table. You want to do that. So I will create a trigger for that, and I will try to insert a data row into the view. Okay, KL Rahul, I will try to insert. And let's see what happened. Can you see the trigger TRG view employee called? That means by default, whenever somebody try to insert a record on the view, the instead of trigger got fired. And when it got fired, it tried inserting record into the actual table, actual employee table. And on the actual employee table, there is also a trigger available known as employee table. Whenever a record get inserted in employee, you trigger it. And there is also a listener also available for another trigger that listens to insert, update, delete, all the both, right? All the three trigger get executed one by one by one, right? So I created a view based trigger. View, whenever somebody try to insert a record on the view, I'm saying instead of inserting the record of view, you instead insert it into the employee table. I'm trying to insert in view, it will try to insert in employee table, right? And then the trigger gets fired, right? So if you go into the employees audit table, you will see so many records. KL Rahul getting inserted into the table, one through the insert trigger, one through the generic trigger, this particular trigger, one this particular trigger inserted, one this trigger inserted. Clear? Clear about the instead of? Instead of means instead of doing the activity on the actual object, you do on some other object. That is where you will do the instead of trigger. Majority time you will do the for trigger. There will be a rarest of rare situation where you will be doing the instead of trigger on a view. Okay, but do remember there is a concept available as instead of. Instead of does what? It supports instead of doing the insert, update, delete operation on the actual table, you do it on some other table. So I'm trying to insert on the view, but instead of inserting the data on the view, it is trying to insert the record on the actual table. Clear? Now the last part, a DDL trigger. What is the DDL trigger? Like we have a DML trigger, DDL trigger gets automatically triggered whenever you do a DDL event. Create, alter, drop, rename, truncate, any operation on any kind of event. Whenever I say, for an example, I want to do create, whenever somebody does a create table or alter table, drop table kind of event, I want to capture all those record inside a table. I have created a new table called as table audit log, log ID, event date, and changed by. Okay, do remember whenever there is a intrinsic function available known as event data that generates an XML kind of data structure for any kind of DDL event. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to do a DDL trigger. Okay, create or create trigger name on database for create table, alter table, drop table. When you say on database, you don't need to say on study, you say only database. That is a database trigger. By default, wherever you are creating, that database trigger will be created. Done. Once it is done, you would see if I create a table, new table I'm trying to create. Okay, There is already an object. Okay, I will say create test1. If I do that, whenever I do a create, a DDL trigger get called. Correct? Select star from the audit log. Show me who did it. This is the last record that got inserted. I executed this particular create table command. This is the test1 table study. This is the user who tried inserting. This is the SQL server on which it got inserted. This is the time at what time it got inserted. Everything got captured here. Okay. So DDL trigger get associated to a DDL event. That is what the concept of a trigger is. What are the interview question? I have given all the example in the script file, also on the slide deck. What is the interview question related to the trigger? What is the difference between a stored procedure and a trigger? Stored procedure can be invoked by user. Trigger cannot be directly called by user. You have to do DML or DDL event to trigger the event. Types of trigger, two types of trigger, DML trigger or DDL trigger. DML trigger gets invoked automatically upon a DML event like insert, update, delete. And there is no trigger called as merge command, merge trigger. The trigger get only triggered by insert, update, delete event. Though merge is also a DML command, but we know merge doesn't have any special ability. It either do insert, update or delete. That is why trigger only gets invoked depending upon insert, update, delete. Types of trigger, DDL trigger and DML trigger. DDL trigger listens to DDL event like create, alter, drop, rename and truncate. And DML trigger listens to all the DML events like insert, update, delete. Can you call a trigger? Absolutely no. Can you write a transaction within a trigger? Absolutely no. Okay, within a procedure you can do a transaction, but within a trigger you cannot. Do not bother, you can try. We'll show this particular example tomorrow. We'll be doing the transaction control language. Finally, we'll complete the last two command stack, transaction control language and security control language tomorrow. So over there, we'll study about the transaction control language behavior. Any questions, students, by far? That's all for today's session. If you have any question, please post. Kalyan, Mohammed, Rapathi, Manideep, Vijaya, Krishna, Uday, Kiran. Any questions? All clear about a trigger? Trigger automatically gets triggered whenever a DML event happens. Okay, that is the concept you need to remember. Inside the trigger, there are two magic tables, inserted and deleted. Inserted will have data only if it is the insert command. Deleted will have data if it is the delete command. Update command, when executed, it will put the old data into the deleted table and the new data into the inserted table. That is where the magic tables get leveraged. Okay. Thank you. If you don't have any other question, we'll continue from the transaction control language and the security control language tomorrow. That will conclude your SQL server part. And from Saturday onward, we'll start the PostgreSQL. Majorly, syntaxes remain same. Like I said, SQL is entirely coined and postulated by NSI. Major of the syntaxes will remain same. It will be a kind of next 7-8 session of practice of everything that we learn, but we'll do inside the procedure. There will be some slight variation. We'll understand what are those slight variation. In that way, you are ready for any kind of database. SQL Server is the predominant Microsoft product stack. Postgre is the open source. You can try with MySQL. You can try with any other database product, Oracle or anything. All majority of the syntaxes will work as is. Okay. Thank you, student. Let's meet and start talking tomorrow. If you have any question around the trigger or anything, come prepared, ask the question tomorrow, because tomorrow we'll be covering the majority of our SQL stack. Okay, we'll start with the PostgreSQL starting Saturday. Thank you.